We make many useful things from paper. These paper boxes will hold milk. This machine makes paper drinking cups. The machine shapes the cups from pieces of paper and glues the pieces together. This press prints news and comic strips on paper. Newspapers for millions of people to read every day. This bookmaking machine glues the backs on paper books. Book paper and most other kinds of paper come from trees. Here in the forest, a man is measuring trees. This one is large enough to be cut down and made into paper. He marks the tree this way. Woodsmen will see the mark and cut down the tree. In another part of the forest, woodsmen are already working. First, they cut partway through with an axe. Then, the sharp teeth of the saw quickly finish the job. The tree begins to fall. More wood for making paper. At once, the woodsman cuts off the branches. This makes it easier to drag the logs out of the forest. Only the logs are used for making paper. Another woodsman fastens a chain around a log. The log is on its way through the woods. The horse pulls the log into the sawing yard. Here, woodsmen cut the logs into shorter lengths. A small gasoline engine runs this saw. The logs stay here until winter. When winter comes, men haul the logs out of the forest on sleds. The roads are made of ice and snow. Trucks pick up the logs at the edge of the forest where good roads begin. The trucks carry the logs down to the bank of a river. A bulldozer shoves the logs into a pile. Here, they stay until spring. Now it is spring. Ice and snow have melted. The water that fills the river carries the logs downstream to the paper mill. Now the water trip is over. The logs are at the mill. Two men keep moving the logs along. A conveyor carries them up and into the paper mill. This man guides the logs into a machine that takes off the bark. The logs go in one end of the machine and come out the other end, smooth and clean. They tumble out of the machine and fall onto a conveyor below. Men sort the logs as they move along on the conveyor. Now the logs go into another machine. It cuts them into chips with its strong, sharp knives turning very fast. They cut this large log into small chips in a few seconds. The chips spill out on a screen like a sifter that shakes them back and forth. The chips that stay on top of the screen are too large to use. Smaller chips fall through the screen and travel on a conveyor to the pulp mill. Here they pour into the top of a large tank. This tank is like a big pressure cooker. Here, the wood chips become paper pulp. A man turns a valve. This lets a strong, hot acid into the tank. The chips cook in this acid. While the chips are cooking, the engineer checks the temperature and pressure in the tank. The cooking is over. The raw pulp is on its way to the bleaching tank. In this tank, a bleaching substance mixes with the pulp and makes it white. In the next machine, sprays of clean water wash the pulp. Clean, white pulp makes good paper. When the pulp is in the washer, it's time to take a sample. One scoopful, and then another. This sample of pulp will go to the laboratory. In the laboratory, men use instruments to find whether or not the pulp will make good paper. This test shows how well the pulp will go through the paper-making machine. And this test shows how strong the paper will be. How easily will the paper tear? This test shows that. The men in the laboratory also make many other tests. Let's go back to the clean white pulp. It is on its way again. It pours down a chute and into a tank. Chemicals also pour into the tank. These chemicals make paper smooth and easy to write on. Now the pulp has been mixed and beaten and is ready to be made into paper. This is the paper-making machine. Wet pulp goes in at one end and paper comes out at the other. The pulp and water start through the machine. At this end, there is a moving wire screen. A thin layer of pulp and water flows across the screen. As the screen shakes back and forth, the pulp fibers are mixed so that they stick together. The water drains off below, but the pulp stays above on the screen. Now, the layer of moist fibers is strong enough to hold together as it goes from one roller to the next roller. The paper now goes between these rollers that press out more water. And next, between steam-heated rollers that dry the paper. At the end of the paper machine, these steel rollers iron the paper, making it smooth. Out comes the finished paper. It runs out of the machine and winds on a roll. Another roll starts when one is full. There is nearly a mile of paper on each of these large rolls. This machine unwinds the new paper. It comes off the rolls and passes under small round knives that cut it into strips. A long knife on this roller cuts the strips into sheets of paper. All the sheets are just the same size. The sheets slide down to the end of the machine. A woman looks over the finished sheets. Stacks of clean, fresh paper ready to be made into books, tablets, and many other useful things. Paper from the trees of the forest.